Korean developers are taking over the video gaming industry, and evidently so when they're buying up failed products from Xbox and Microsoft and adding it to their catalog of games to build up. I'm talking about Krafton, the developer for PUBG, buying assets from Microsoft after having a record year in sales where it just made their company CEO a billionaire again. And this is just showing the difference in successes for Korean developers in comparison to Western games developers that are seeing massive layoffs after massive layoffs, and a surge of whining and complaining from developers saying what's going on with this industry, why is no one buying games, and why are gamers upset at developers and rooting for their games to fail. And this is just showing the dichotomy and differences between two sales strategies that are occurring at the same time, one between Eastern game developers and one towards Western game developers, where Eastern game developers are giving the fans what they want. And clearly you can see with some of the biggest successes in the industry, that being Stellar Blade, one of the biggest successes for a new Korean developer, Shift Up, that just opened itself up on the publicly traded market, selling at over $450 million in profit at its IPO. And this is just the profit they made selling their stock, and that is not mentioning the company having a valuation over $1.5 billion. This is just the mark of successes that we're seeing in the video gaming industry from the Eastern game sphere. And this is not mentioning the First Descendant, which is one of the Korean developers that came out this July that had record sales numbers and is one of the most talked about and played games on Steam to this day. This is showing the massive differences and successes between two different game developer strategies, and it's showing that a lot of Korean developers now are more eager than ever to actually develop single player games now, because they're seeing massive success with these game styles in the East and the West. And it's just showing that there's money left in the single game player market, while Western game developers are trapped in this ideology that single player games are worthless and they must hop onto the trend of the multiplayer shooter looter style that we've been seeing pop up everywhere now recently. And I think this is the situation where there's a giant massive hole in the market and Korean developers are seeing a way to actually profit from it. And I think that is the thing that we're getting here with this article, where it's mentioning that Korean developers are more keen on making single player games because they're just seeing massive success and opportunities with these games all across the world. And it's just something that a lot of game players have been saying to Western game developers, whether it's on social media or anywhere else. They've been begging for these type of games, and they've been hotly refused from these developers because most of them are in a board-like public company situation where they're more focused on profits of the current trends rather than making something unique that is attractive to the players. And this is just the detrimental situation you get in once you're a publicly stock traded company. You're just focused on following the trends because that's the safest thing. That's the public data you have. You have obligations to your stakeholders and shareholders, and you're trying to make the quickest buck at the cheapest possible way. And I think that's eventually where you get the schism of no single player games and mostly focusing on shooter games. More than anything than that, you're obligated to have these social responsibility standards that are being imposed on you from investment banks like BlackRock, Vanguard, that have these DEI standards that remove the appeal and attractiveness of characters in games. I think this is a situation that we've been seeing with a lot of properties that have been coming out from Western games developers. We just see games that have no beautiful female characters anymore, and I think that's where you have games like the First Descendant and Stellar Blade come out and take advantage of that situation, where they can just make a simple, basic, beautiful character, and game players in the West are losing themselves over it because there's a dearth of quantity of characters like that, let alone cute characters. I think First Descendant has plenty of those characters and being celebrated for that, and I see this trend going where Korean developers realize there's just a dark hole in the Western games development market where no market needs are being met for the customer base anymore. They're being met for a political action committee that wants to oppose their social political ideology on the gamer, where they're trying to remove the things the gamers actually want in their games. I think the biggest thing that we've been seeing in the industry so far is the removal of the looks and the appeal of a lot of characters. And I think sticking to this style, it is drawing a lot of people to the Eastern games development market. I think this is another another trend showing that Korea may be the leader in the games development market for the foreseeable future right now, because the successes are just mounting at a pace right now that it seems unstoppable for the moment. Of course, things can change over the course of a few years, but I think what we're going here with this market right now is that we're seeing an intended push from Korean developers to actually produce more content in line with the customer base. And this is just showing this company's awareness of what the customer base actually wants. And I think that's the thing that we rarely see in the Western games development market, where a company can notice the shift and where the trend is going for the game players that actually want to purchase games. And we're seeing that come back twofolds in massive successes with multiple games that have catered to the fan base. I'm talking about First Descendant and of course Stellar Blade, where they're making games for the game players, and the game players are responding in kind by making those games massive successes. And I think we rarely see this happening within the Western games market, where you never get that response from the game developers. The response most game players get from Western game developers is that you're misogynist, racist, bigot, liar that needs to be erased from the planet. And that is a response that a lot of game players are used to getting. Even right now, where game players are complaining about the massive amount of terrible games coming out in this day and age, when it comes to incomplete games like Skull and Bones, to Star Wars Outlaws, to Starfield, is so much games that are incomplete, incomprehensible, and not fun, and people are complaining about these games. And then you have developers coming out and say you're just a racist bigot, you don't like these games because you have these super regressive views and you need to be relearned and re-educated. And that is just not going to appeal to a gamer that just wants to have fun playing games. And you're not getting that response from Korean developers. They're saying, okay, we'll make the game you want and hopefully you buy it. And that is what's happening. People are buying their games and they're responding to the feedback from the gamer, and this is leading them to actually push in and lean into what the gamers actually want to see in the markets. And I think that is a surprising response that we're seeing from a developer right now, and that's why game players are even more so attracted to these new games coming out of these markets. And that's why the developers in the West are failing so massively. The layoffs for these companies are staggering when you look at what's happening in the industry right now, where everyone is losing their job and nothing is stopping it. Over 2,000 jobs lost at Unity. Riot Games, League of Legends, they're losing almost thousands of their staff, and we just keep going on and on with the failures within the industry. Microsoft laying off 1,900, Activision even up to another 2,000 people. It's never ending, these layoffs, showing the industry is in a terrible situation with Sony's cutting, Naughty Dog, Insomniac. All these positions are being expunged and erased within the industry because they're not catering to the fan base. No one's buying their highly thought out, managed and developed games, and it's leading to a backlash within the industry itself, where you will have to fire jobs now. You can't sustain yourself. And I think the opposite is happening in the Korean market, where they're buying studios. And I think this is the thing that I hope to see within the Korean development market, even the Chinese development market, where they're buying developers, they're working on the developers, and they're hoping that they can produce something for the customer base to love. And I think we as game players just want to see that from a games developer. It doesn't matter if they fail, as long as they try to make something for a gamer to actually love. I think we would be happy with it. And I think even in the past, when bad games came out, you could still tell the developer tried to make a game people loved. He just failed at it, and you still had respect for those games. I think that's opposite for today. Today we get games that hardly have any effort put into them, and if they had some effort, they hated the gamers that they were making the games for. And I think it's just fun that we have games now being made by people that actually love the games that they're making. And I think that's what we're getting from Korean developers. They're making games that gamers love. And I'm happy now that we're getting something that is fully enjoyable by the player base. But this is just my thoughts on the situation. Korean developers are now planning to lean in onto developing more single player games and purchasing more studios as they see massive success over the Western games development market. You think this is sustainable? Do you think this will change? I highly doubt anything will change for the near future. I think Korean is on the up and up. Sales are going to skyrocket, and I don't think they're going to change their business model anytime soon. But you tell me what you think about the situation. I'd like to hear your comments. This is Wagner Knows Why. Catch you next time.